So here we are at the old house of Ahren Barnard. Ahren lived here at this house in 2004 when he disappeared. And that was an interesting evening that he disappeared.
So apparently he was dropping off his child at McDonald's, got something to eat. His roommate called on it as he was coming home. His roommate called him and told him he needed to come home. We know that his roommate Tyler was living here.
Yep.
We know he was here when Ahren would have shown up. He's told a couple of different stories.
Mm-hmm. So we know that Ahren actually definitely made it here because his car was found parked in the driveway, and some of his belongings that he had with him, I believe his jacket and some other things, were found inside the house as well. So
we know that Tyler told the police that he didn't see Ahren come home. However, we also have heard that he has told people that he took Ahren to the airport. Both of those stories can't be true. We would love to talk to Tyler, get his side of the story. We do know for a fact that Ahren came home.
Yeah, without a doubt. And so as we think about, as we think about the interview with Vicky, his mom, this is the location that she references, that she talks about when Ahren disappeared, where the mystery all begins.
And we know that his mom, because you'll hear her talk about coming to the house after he disappeared, looking for belongings. We know that things disappeared from this house. Tyler was the only person that had access to this house, to our knowledge.
Yeah, well, we did hear also that one of the neighbors had seen a truck backed up to the garage, like they were loading some stuff up into the truck. So hopefully we can find out some more information about that. So if one of the neighbors that was here, we would love to talk to them as well.
Yes.
So this is where it all starts, and so that's what we know about this place.
Yes, so let's... If anybody has any... Go ahead.
We also know that there was illegal gambling going on.
Oh, yes.
This is one of the places where an illegal gambling ring that was going on at the time had a table set up in this house as well that Ahren was hosting. So that's what we know.
Yes. So if anybody knows anything, reach out to us. You can like, share, subscribe. We need information about this, though. So if you want to contact us,
you can either reach us on our Facebook Messenger page, which is facebook.com/IntoDarknessNW,
or our Gmail account. You can reach out to us at IntoDarknessNW@gmail.com.
All right.
What you're doing to help, and I appreciate that you put Ahren on. It just keeps going on and on and on, and I know that people know, and I just don't know how to reach them. And I'm getting old. I don't want to die before I find my son. I'm feeling it now.
Understand that.
This is a very complicated case. I think we broke all kinds of records and in the police department for amounts of stuff. And I think it's been frustrating for friends of his that the police haven't done more, but in fact, the police did much more than people realize. We just couldn't share it. And there have been so many things that I couldn't say over the years in trying to talk to the public or the podcasts and things. But I've talked to the police in the last couple of years, and we throw it right out there pretty much. There's a few things we hold back, but for the most part, it's been 18 years now. What's the point of holding things back? So I don't ever say what I think happened necessarily unless I've got something to back it up, some sort of fact. So I don't want to throw out names unless I know that they made this statement. I've got it in writing. I've got someone that will testify on it or something like that. So I've got a lot of information, but I don't want to get myself in trouble either. So when Donna Reed, who is a friend of Ahren, she and her husband John had a store near one of Ahren's stores years ago. A couple years back, or several years back, she and some of her friends started a Facebook page for Ahren. And we have put a lot of information on there, but in the beginning, nobody wanted to talk about generalities, which at this point just doesn't work. And so that's when the police had given me permission to go ahead and say what I wanted.
Okay.
And so we will do that. But if you'd like to start at the beginning, I can tell you a little bit about Benj
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then how this case happened. He was an only child, my only child. I was married young, had him, and then was divorced when he was 2. So I raised Ahren by myself. He always had a broken heart from the age of 3 on, where he would cry himself to sleep at night because he didn't have a dad. Some kids, they grow up, they don't miss him. But it always was a sore spot with Ahren. And when he disappeared, so many people would say, wow, he sure has an issue with his father. So his father was never involved. He never saw him. He never contributed financially, spiritually, physically, anything. And so it was just Benj and me. And consequently, we were a very tight-knit little family of 2. He was very smart. From 2nd grade on, he was bored with school. And unless he had an exceptional teacher or something that interested him, like music, he just hated school. So when he was a sophomore, he dropped out, which broke my heart because, I loved school. And I threatened him, and he said, what are you going to do? Follow me to school, and then when you go to work, I'll just go home. So, we dealt with that, and he dropped out of school. And one day, just to sort of, I guess, display his spontaneity and how smart he was, he went to the library and said he'd like to take the GED. And the lady was very nice and said, well, we can sign you up for some classes and you can study for it and we'll get you tested. And I don't want to bother with that. Can I just take it? And she said, well, that's very odd. We really don't like to do that. And he said, well, I'd like to. So she said, okay, you can take half of it today. And then in a couple of days, you can take the other half. So he challenged it, finished it in a real short amount of time. So they gave him the second test and he did really, really well on it. So he was a smart guy, and he had almost a photographic memory. He was a lot of fun. He had a wicked sense of humor and very sharp. He wasn't everybody's cup of tea. There are people that don't like him. He could have a little bit of bad boy in him, but never cross the line until the end. I'm not sure, and we can talk about that. But and the other thing that I admired about my son was that he didn't have a bigoted bone in his body about anything. The way people looked, whether they were tall, skinny, short, fat, any kind of ethnicity, whether they were a jock or a nerd or a musician or a bum. I mean, he just loved people. And I liked that. I never knew what he was going to bring home because I taught him not to be bigoted in any way. And sometimes you worry about what's going to show up on your doorstep, a bum from down the street or whatever. But so that's a little bit about Benj. And because he didn't have a father, he wanted to be a good father. And he did have children, so I can tell you about that. He had a daughter and a son, 2 different women. And the love of his life was Tiara. And she died in a car crash with their little daughter in the car. And he went through a tough custody battle that just about destroyed him. And in the end, the judge threw the case out after almost 2 years of struggling with that case. It was in Twin Falls. And she was moved to Bainbridge Island and lived with her aunt and uncle, who eventually adopted her in disappearance. And then he had a little boy, and that ended up, he never did marry that lady, but he was going to because it was so important for him to have a family. But she was already dating someone else during her pregnancy and ended up marrying a different man. So he went through that custody battle. because it was important for Benj to be a good father, and he fought for both the children. And there's a real interesting part of this, we can edit this out too, that we need to talk about with Tracy. So, so the story of his disappearance is Benj had, I hadn't talked to him for a while. I talked to him earlier in the week, and he'd traveled up to the Coeur d'Alene Sandpoint area with a friend, had come back. He had visitation with his son. They had joint custody, Teresa and Tracy, and Ahren shared custody for Ian, who was 3. And Ahren had come back from his trip and picked up Ian on a Friday. He had visitation every other week from Friday noon to Monday noon. And he had picked up Ian and was with Ian on a Friday night when I talked to him last. And what happened is Tracy, when she was in town, stayed with her sister who lived on one side of town, and Ahren lived on the other side of town. So they met in a neutral area, and it was the parking lot of McDonald's on Cole and I can't remember the name, on Cole Road.
That's okay. I know that.
Or is it Orchard or the next one? Anyway, the McDonald's on Cole Road, and they would meet in the parking lot and exchange the child. So when I talked to Ahren, he was cooking dinner. He was on the stove. He was sitting on his bed. He was making macaroni and cheese. He was sitting on his bed, and Ian was at the desk in Ahren's bedroom on his chair playing on the computer.
Okay.
And so we were talking, and then we were making plans for Christmas, whether Benj was going to come over here or I was going to go over there, and what I was going to get for Ian. So we talked about, I have to tell you, I use Ahren and Benj in the same sentence, and it's the same person.
Yes, we
It's
know.
okay. Yeah.
When I talked
That's
to
okay.
Ahren was sitting on his bed, and the little boy Ian was on the chair at the desk playing on the computer. And we were talking about Christmas and where we would share Christmas and whether we would be together at Christmas. And then we decided that Ahren would take Ian to a store that weekend, maybe Saturday or maybe Sunday, and measure him for a tricycle. And if he liked it and was excited about it, then I would buy him a tricycle for Christmas. So I asked Ahren to please call me back that weekend after he'd taken Ian to the store so I could arrange for that. And he said, yeah, that's exciting, Mom. Great idea. I'll do that. And then he said, well, I'm cooking macaroni and cheese. I got to run. So we'll talk to you tomorrow or Sunday after we've been to the store to measure the child.
Okay.
And he was in a fine mood. And then Saturday, he had been visiting a friend of his that lived very, very close to him, like a block or two away. Her name is Yvette, and they were very close friends, and she had 2 daughters, I think about 12 and 14 or something. And so they would go to the movies together and do things. And Yvette had a handgun, and Ahren didn't want her having a handgun unless she was properly trained. And so he had a good friend that taught firearms safety, and his name was Bob, and he went to her home. So Benj took him to Yvette's home, and they had worked that morning into the afternoon, or that afternoon. I'm not quite sure the hours there. So Benj went to pick Bob up and take him to his car. And the reason I'm telling you this is because we know what Ahren was wearing.
Okay.
And people that saw him, and that he was in a great mood. And I learned that Ahren was going to take Ian, his son, back to the mom that evening and exchange give the exchange at McDonald's, and she was going to keep the son for the evening. Normally, Benj wouldn't go out while he had Ian. He would just spend all his time with Ian. But a friend of Mike Rose was coming to town, and Benj had not seen him in a while, and he was so excited to see him. And Mike had told me that when he had run into Ahren and they made plans to go out that evening, Ahren was so excited that he gave Mike a big hug and said, "I'm so excited, I can't wait to see you." And then when he picked up Bob to take Bob back to his car or his home from the classes he was given to Yvette also, and Bob as well, all said that Ahren was in a really good mood and excited to go have some fun. So since child was very shy, he thought rather than get a babysitter, I will just take him back to the mom. And Tracy was fine with that. So it was all to be kind to the child and not have him have to be with a stranger. So that's what happened. And Ahren took Ian to the McDonald's parking lot and exchanged him, gave him to the mother, and Tracy took Ian home. And Ahren then headed to a different fast food place and got some food. And we know this because he was talking on the phone to Yvette. And as he was talking, he said, "Yeah, I just ran through someplace and got some food." And she said, "Well, we're sitting in a fast food line now too. We're going to have a movie night." So we knew where everybody was. And while they were chatting, he said, "I'll call you tonight after I get home." And then he said, "Oh, wait a minute, someone's on my phone." Ahren was really, the way he handled his phones was interesting. He had a couple of the same model phone. And he would always answer the phone. He never let it go to voicemail. He would answer. He'd say, "Oh, hi, Mom. I'm on the other line. I can't talk, but I'll call you back." And then, so he'd put people on hold, tell the other person to call him back, and then he'd go back to his call. And that's what he did. He got a phone call when he was talking to Yvette, and it was Tyler, his roommate, a new roommate. And so he put Yvette on hold, talked to Tyler, put him on hold, went back to Yvette and said, "Why, I've got to take this call. It's Tyler. He's calling me from home." Excuse me. "He's waiting for me there." And he said, "But I'm almost home because I just went by your place," which was like, he would probably made it home within 15, 20 seconds. And so he said, "I'll call you tonight." And she said, "Okay." So then he went back to talk to Tyler. And we can verify that. The last call was from Tyler at 7:15, evening of December 4th, a Saturday. That was very good to us in the beginning. She was good friends with Ben. She was very upset at his disappearance. And when I couldn't reach Ahren, I called him many, many times, and he wouldn't ever answer, which was not like him because he always answered. What he did with the multiple phones is he would always keep one charging on the counter. And then when he would come home, or if he was at home, he needed more, instead of charging that phone, he would swap the batteries out. So he did that all the time. And so he never was without power, and he always answered his phone. So, and he wouldn't return emails. And that was just bizarre. So at first I thought, I don't think I called him until Sunday because I knew he was busy with his son. And then I reached out to Yvette and asked if she had heard from him. She said, "No, I can't reach him either. And he never called me Saturday night." And then we started talking. So then I asked his best friend, who is Robert, lived with Benj for a couple of years, and then he moved out, and Tyler moved in. And he hadn't heard from him either, but he had a key to the house. So they went over to the house and looked around, and we tried to figure out what had happened. And the biggest regret I have in my life was that I didn't report him right then missing. I did ask for a welfare check, And the police went and they broke into his bedroom window, and the officer looked around, and there was no, sign of struggle or blood or anything like that, on the floor, the walls, or the furniture and stuff. So he said that he couldn't tell, but it didn't look like there was a struggle or a fight, and there was no dead body there. So that was that. But Ahren used to travel a lot, and he never once left his dog or his cat uncared for. And he had a full-size Doberman named Brutus, and a wonderful little black and white cat named Scrap Iron. Mm-hmm. And they were always cared for. But when my vet went over there, I guess this is before they went in the house, she went over there in the very beginning and threw dog food over the fence because we weren't sure the dog was being fed. And the cat, who used to always come up to people who were visiting and rub against their legs and meow and stuff, she wouldn't come near the house at all. And that is the one piece of evidence that the police were interested in, the only one in the beginning.
That the cat wouldn't go to the house?
Uh-huh.
Why were they so interested in that?
I guess because they thought that maybe their cat had experienced some trauma in the house and then would not go near it. That cats or animals can be very intuitive sometimes, or maybe Bench was dead and cats don't like to be near the death. I'm not a cat expert, so I don't know, but that was also the police. That's another whole story in the beginning.
Okay.
It says a little bit about them as well.
So I take it Tyler was not home when they came over then?
He was not. And he moved out a couple of days after. And I started to tell you the one regret was that I did not report my son missing at that time. Being in the travel industry, I thought, well, maybe he went, this was stupid, I admit it, but maybe he traveled, and as an adult, I didn't want to be a stage door mother poking into his business. And so I waited until the next Saturday night, and then on that Sunday, I called the police. They didn't call me back, and then Monday. So Ahren was not reported missing for a whole week and 3 days. And actually, Tracy, the mother of Ian, went to the police with her sister and reported him missing. And I had done it, I think, the same day or the day before, and they didn't call me back. So it didn't matter as long as somebody reported him missing. But Tyler, in the meantime, Ahren disappeared on Saturday. Tyler moved out about 3 or 4 days later. Well, Ahren is still missing. And when I talked to Tyler, I said, Tyler, you were bugging Bench for a week or two to help you go do something to get revenge on a man that had hit Tyler. Ben kept refusing to go, and Tyler kept pushing and pushing and pushing him. And I think that's why he was luring him home. But I said, so when you were the last one to talk to Ahren. And I said, and yet you say he didn't make it home. He goes, that's right, he didn't make it home. I said, he was just seconds from your front door. How do you explain that you called him, you were talking to him on the phone, he said, I'm coming right there, and then all of a sudden he wasn't there, but his car is here in the driveway and his coat made it home. And I said, what did you do? Just hang up the phone real quick and run out as fast as you can so you'd miss him? And he goes, yeah.